The document with the starting questions. I'm wondering, do I have it? I think I have it somewhere. Give me a clue when you're ready. A cue, sorry. Okay, good evening all, and welcome to this, I think the third session organized by CivilNet Tobago, and on the topic education, and more particularly, are we miseducating the Tobagonian? We have a panel. I would like to see my panel, please. We have a panel. Of candidates from both the PDP and the IDA, the Progressive Democratic Patriots, and the Innovative Democratic Alliance. Representing the PDP, we have Zorisha Hackett. Representing the IDA, I think I see here Joy Boatswain George and Stacey Herbert and Leroy George. And they will be presenting their views on education in Tobago, and more particularly, whether answering the question whether they we have been miseducating the Tobagonian. This session is put on by the Tobago CivilNet, which is a non-partisan organization, is interested in all matters Tobagonian, and in particular, we have issues arising in relation to a repeat of the Tobago House of Assembly elections, which took place on January 25th earlier this year, and is carded for the 6th of December in 2021. And the candidates have been asked, of all the parties have been asked to send representatives, and we've got responses, positive responses from the IDA and the PDP. And so I would like to ask my panelists, which of them would like to start first? Hello? Zorisha, you would like to start? Okay, but I can't hear you. Could you unmute yourself? I think you. So let's start again.
Yes, I would love to start first, Dr. James.
Excellent. I'm going to ask, I can't find the question that was sent to me, probably in due course. I found it earlier, but on a different device. Welcome, Zorisha. And let me just start off. Do you and or your party have a vision for education in Tobago?
Yes, we do, Dr. James. We certainly do. And we've had this vision since the inception of this political organization, where we believe the Tobago House of Assembly should be solely, if not in collaboration with the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, as it relates to education. It's one of our 33 areas of responsibility. And I and my party believe we have not been doing enough to actually push the trajectory of education forward in this space called Tobago. Our history and culture is different from that of Trinidad, although we're a twin island republic, and I believe that we've been overlooking what it truly means to educate Tobago. So yes, we have been pushing a mantra forward based on the mandate of our people that our education needs to be tailor-cut to our particular scenario, the socio-economic and historical pursuits here as an island. So, yes,
would you like to be a little bit more specific? That's in general terms, but do you have a program that you want to talk to the public about?
Yes, I do. And what I would love to do is to quote a bit from our mandate. All right, we have items listed as it relates to education in our mandate. And this mandate would have been, you know, a position we have placed forward based on what was given from the people and based on our research as it relates to what our educational pursuit should be. And that mandate would have been, as I said, available since 2017. We've never been in that position to truly govern this island. We've been in a minority position between 2017 and 2021, as you know, and then we're just coming out of a 6-6 deadlock where we have not been at that executive council level to push our educational pursuits that were mandated by the people forward. And so for education, as it relates to what our mandate says, we are focusing on what we currently have and deem as high failure rates when you look at the national scope of education. So we need to up that system. We also have a policy where we want to introduce something called SMART, a smart academic program. And that SMART has to do with science, math, arts, reading, technology. And that's
okay. Hold it there. I will come back to you, and
you're gonna come back.
Choose one of those areas and give us some of the specifications.
No problem.
Thank you very much. I would like to go to Mr. George now. Leroy George. I think he's representing the IDA, one of the two representatives of the IDA. I think PDP has two and IDA has two. And that is because we haven't had any positive response from the PNM, and we haven't had anything from the independents either. So let's go to Mr. George and ask him what are his views on managing the education system in Tobago in such a way as to bring great improvements or to bring realities that are not already here. Mr. George, I hope the question is clear enough.
It's very clear, it's very clear. First, I want to lend some agreement to what Assemblywoman Zoisha Hackett said. She made mention of Act 40 of 1996. She didn't use as many words, but she did speak about the 33 responsibilities that fall under the Tobago House of Assembly. And I want to point out in the 5th schedule of that act that one of those responsibilities, as she mentioned, is education. And if you look at the document itself, the persons who wrote that document, they were very specific in making sure to put next to education in brackets, open and close brackets, including the syllabus, right? Or including the curriculum rather. And as a result, we have to have it customized for Tobagonians. But the idea would take it a bit further, because what we recognize is that a lot of Tobagonians in their miseducation are being taught that if they get their O-level subjects, if they go on to get their degree, then they are going to get employment that would suit that level of education that they went on to get. And as a result, they're going to enjoy that standard of life that one would expect, given what they are promised informally or formally. And as a result of that, what we in the IDA intend to do is to have the Executive Council give a report on a very regular basis to all of our students, letting them know the direction that we're taking Tobago, so that they know they can shape their careers according to what is available going into the future. Because we know that, according to Dr. Martin Luther King, he said, the worst thing that you could do is to build a society where a large percentage of that society feel as though they have no stake in that society. Because if they feel as though they have no stake in that society, while those who have a stake in the society will work hard to protect that society, those that don't have a stake in that society, they will subconsciously want to destroy that society. That's a quote from Martin Luther King. We want to avoid that situation, and so we want to customize the education system and to inform the students as to what the needs are of Tobago as we go forward.
Leroy, just before I leave you, could you tell your audience which seat you will be contesting?
Lowlands Lambo. I would be the candidate for IDA in Lowlands Lambo.
Good. And I want to go back briefly to Zorish and ask her to tell us what is the area that she will be representing for the PDP?
So I was previously the area representative for Plymouth Golden Lane, and I would now be pursuing the electoral district of Bethesda, place of my birth, which is a subset of Plymouth, the larger village, Bethesda Leketo, and it also includes Golden Lane and part of Moriah in the Woodlands area.
And we're going to Stacey Herbert now. Abby, just hold a little string. We will go to Stacey Herbert. Would you like to add, Stacey, anything to what Leroy has said? You are both from the same political party, IDA. So Stacey Herbert, good evening and welcome. Would you like to add to what Leroy has said?
Yes, I would like to add to what Leroy would have said. When we look at the education system in Tobago, I do agree that there has been some miseducation, and I think that that is because there hasn't been a clear directive as regards where we're taking Tobago, right? We market our island as clean, green, safe and serene, but if you notice, the careers that students choose is not necessarily in line with this clean, green, safe and serene. We have, we're talking about developing communities and all of that. Where I live is in the northern part of the island, and our community focuses on fishing and the natural environment. It's the area where the oldest protected rainforest in the Western Hemisphere is located. And yet, with that direction, that mantra that we keep using, clean, green, safe, and serene, I have not seen a push in the direction to take our island in that direction when it comes to all academics, right? Where are the marine biologists and where are the people who would focus on this thing? Which is why I believe we have a brain drain in this island, in Trinidad and Tobago, because we have not catered to the people who live here in the environment that we live, that would actually build our communities and build our island.
Are you suggesting that people are running from the island because the island is not focused on the academic needs of the population?
Exactly. That is exactly what I am saying.
Mm-hmm. And you would like changes in the curriculum at what level? Starting with preschool.
Starting at preschool, come right up. What I have been seeing, there isn't even with a simple thing as we look down on garbage men. A lot of people look down on garbage men. Garbage men are part of the chain when it comes to clean, green, safe, and serene. Why are we not directing our children and showing them the value of every single job that they choose, every single career path that they choose? We need to do this, right? That is the only way. This needs to start from primary school level. There needs to be education as regards the interaction between the environment and what we do, right? How we use it, how every single thing has to be focused on this thing, else we're going to be wasting time.
I want to come back eventually, Stacey.
Yes.
I want to come back to the fact that your mention of the fact that we are an island and we have fishing resources which need to become a part of the school curriculum.
Yes.
Training students in fishing and probably moving on. So prepare for that question as I move to Miss Abby. Miss Abby Taylor, is it? Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Yes, Miss Taylor, Abby Taylor.
Well, good evening. Hi.
I was interested in your this distinction that you made at the beginning of this conversation. Distinction between good evening and good night. You were telling the audience that good evening is when you meet somebody and you are going to join a conversation with them, and good night is if you're taking leave you're leaving that person and you're wishing them a good night. Is that, did I hear that right?
I think you did. So good evening, everyone.
Exactly.
Good evening.
In the Caribbean, it's not like that, eh?
It's not.
Yeah, possible. So Ms. Taylor, you heard your colleague Zorisha. Tell us first of all, what area will you be representing, will be contesting in the December 6th elections?
Well, I'm the prospective candidate for the Darrell Spring WIM electoral district. I previously contested the Blackrock WIM Spring Garden electoral district. So yes.
Under what banner? Were you an
Under the
independent
PDP.
at the time?
No, under the PDP, the Progressive
Under the
Democratic
PDP,
Patriots,
no,
sir.
no, yeah, for a moment there, forgive me, I mixed you up with Stacy, but that's correct.
Yes.
And you didn't make it, you said?
No, I did not. It was unfortunate, but it gave me an opportunity to study my community a little bit more, get to understand the nooks and crannies of the area. So I think I'm a little bit more equipped to represent the persons in that community.
What news, what new ideas do you have, you and your party? I know you're joining Zorisha here, so you're sharing ideas, but what new ideas does your party have and do you have for Tobago to improve Tobago's educational landscape?
Well, I think that in educational reformation, something that we so desperately need on this island, it must start with the ideology of who we are as a people. I mean, to me, I believe most people believe the Tobagonian is a person. I see the Tobagonian as an entity, as a model that can be followed by our peers in Trinidad, our peers of the island. International persons looking on at us must be able to adopt the Tobagonian model. And I think that our curriculum needs a serious injection of patriotism. And when I say that, I say this: we cannot have an island like Tobago filled with history, filled with culture, filled with drama, and not have this displayed in our educational system. It seriously lacks the Tobagonianness that we display on a daily basis. Heritage for us is more than just an annual event. It's our way of life. And this should be incorporated into our educational system. And it should start at, for me, the preschool.
You are linking the heritage to the other point you started off making, that is to say, you want patriotism to be part of the school system, but you're linking with the heritage.
We must have a sense of Tobago pride. And I think that we only see that once a year. That should be a 365-day experience for us. It should be something that should be emulated.
But you are focused on getting it to be part of the curriculum. Am I getting you right?
Correct.
You're thinking of it being its own subject on the curriculum?
Yes, sir. This should be a discourse. This should be an academic discourse that should be mandatory from the time you enter preschool. You must be, and I was privy to your yours and Farley's discussion of the Tobago language and how expressive we are and how the country dialect is different to the tongue dialect. And I mean, so much people take these things for granted. And so many visitors to the island come and are amazed by the way we talk and the way we express ourselves. So
but are you raising that conversation with Farley and me to say that the role of the dialect and appreciation of the dialect must be a subset of patriotism?
Yes, sir.
Is that what you're saying?
It must be pronounced, and I don't think that we take ourselves seriously enough to let it be part of our educational system. I mean, we have in Jamaica the study of reggae. We have in our neighboring island, Trinidad, the study of carnival. Why don't we have in Tobago heritage studies? It's a very diverse discourse that could be adopted, and you could have various subsets of it throughout the curriculum.
Abby, I will come back to you and I want you to show me how you are going to fix things to have those ideas incorporated, infused into the new education system that you want to see develop.
No problem.
Precisely how you go about getting the change done.
Sure.
And we come back now to Ms. Hackett. Ms. Hackett, is there any point you made earlier that you want to clarify, or do you want to add to what you have already said to us?
So, two things. Firstly, I'm realizing that Mr. George and Mrs., is it Miss or Mrs. Herbert? I'm sorry if I don't have the title right. Miss Herbert. That we're very on par with these ideas, and it's a pity that we could not have worked together as one entity to bring some attention to the failings of the current administration. The reason why we're here is because we actually, since 1996, you know, we were charged with the responsibility of one of these 33 areas, that is education. And we're here discussing something, and I mean, I'm hearing the same, you know, the same ideas and the same ideologies coming from all four of us. So I just wanted to say that it's a pity that we could not have found a way to work together if it comes to a point where we're definitely highlighting the flaws and the failings of the current regime. So
but
that's
certainly,
first. And secondly, what I want to say is without...
Dorisha, yeah.
Yes.
Keep an ear out for the chair while you speak. Yes, I'm saying, but certainly if you're going to introduce change into the system, it is in the House of Assembly where law is made that the change will materially have to be discussed and changed and made. The change.
But I'm talking about getting to that point, Dr. James.
You mean before you become a lawmaker?
Before you sit at the table, there needs to be. Yes, sir. I mean, if we share ideologies, I mean, separating these ideologies.
But you know how difficult it is to, before you get to the table, as you put it, you know how difficult that is.
Yes.
Because
so I'm just lamenting on, you know, what a pity it is. I'm just lamenting on what a pity it is.
Yeah, but surely you must get to the point of deciding whether that route is a realistic route. You think that route is a realistic route? You call
what route? The collaboration of the competent and the willing coming to one position.
The route of calling your political adversaries to come and have a conversation. You know how difficult that is. You just don't call anybody and say, let's have a meeting, do you? It doesn't happen that way, does it?
Look at us here. We don't even have a political organization here, present here. So that in itself demonstrates how difficult it is.
So I'm saying it's difficult, isn't it? And this is why I'm pointing we don't try. This is why I'm pointing you, Ms. Hackett, to the chambers of the House of Assembly for that kind of discussion and eventually lawmaking. So
you're right as it relates to that.
Are you prepared to mount a conversation within the chambers of the House of Assembly on the matter of education? And eventually, right? And so I'm asking you now, well, let me put it differently. Right now, is Tobago, I'm asking you that, is Tobago in charge of its own education?
It's supposed to be, but unfortunately, no. We're a carbon copy of the national policy.
Two of you spoke of the 33 areas of responsibility, and I'm sure one of those areas is education. Show us, tell the public ways in which, even though the House of Assembly has that as part of its jurisdiction, the House of Assembly is in fact not in control of education in Tobago. You would like, I think, Tobago to be in control of the educational direction which it wants to go, right?
Yes, sir.
So give us some thoughts either you or your party has on this matter.
Okay. So first of all, we believe in identifying what it means to be Tobagonian. All right. And that Tobago identity must be the fore of every other conversation. And that conversation cannot be void of the autonomy issue. What it means to be self-determining and understanding where you are going as an island and the goals and dreams and pursuits of this island. So it's all interlinked. And when it comes to education, one of the things that we're lacking here that I think is going to guide our way forward in how we pursue this educational quest is the fact that we needed to even have a tertiary institution on this island that takes charge of education. And so it filters from the top all the way down. And I'm hearing individuals talking about, waiting until you go to preschool and starting that Tobago identity from preschool. But I believe that even in the informal education system, from the time you step out, from the time you come out of your mother's womb, sorry for saying step out, but from the time you come out, that Tobagonian-ness should be inculcated in the home, just the way in the way we value our language or history.
And you're saying that the education system does not allow for that kind of infusion.
No, because we literally sit down and wait on Trinidad to send this policy up. All right, and we just mirror this education policy that if you look at any of the texts and so on we use in the actual schooling system, it's not tailored to us. We have all these reading books and all this material that is very Trini-centric. All right, you're talking about issues and ideologies and so on a national scope, and it has Tobago very, very limited. And so I'm thinking that even in the literature that's placed out there in the public domain, we don't have anything much that identifies with this island. So even in that and the theoretical basis of it, the Tobagonian-ness is not there. And as I said before, identity is the issue. What does it mean to be Tobagonian? And patriotism comes in there, all right? And then that's where all the tenets of culture, the arts, music, language, all of these come together collaboratively to ensure that we as an island can understand where we're coming from, and that could determine where we obviously would be going.
Okay.
So definitely, we definitely need to understand.
You will have other opportunities. We have until 7:30,
okay.
Zorisha. You will have more opportunities, and I like the fact that you are voluble in the way you're presenting these ideas, but I don't want Leroy to get the sense that I may have forgotten that he's there. So Leroy, do you want to develop on the ideas you introduced when I asked you the question early in the program? Leroy?
Certainly, I would love to develop on it. But before I develop on it, I would like to address what Assemblywoman Zia Hackett said. I think it is more or less consistent with the desires of the people of Tobago to see some collaboration taking place, right? Mm-hmm. And while some would want to collaborate, with the basis being that we've had a failed administration and successive failed administrations for at least the last 20 years or so, I personally would like to see a collaboration that would involve the experience that the present administration does have, because they do have a lot of experience. We know that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And as such, there is a hurdle to be had when dealing with them. And I would remind Tobagonians that—
well, let's be clear, Leroy, a collaboration between whom?
In my personal opinion, the Act 40 of 1996, which is the act that governs how the Tobago House of Assembly works, does not recognize political parties. It only recognizes assembly persons. And so when saying who, we cannot speak in terms of political parties. We have to speak in terms of assembly persons. So just as you had said, any collaboration that is to take place has to take place in the chamber and not outside of the chamber. And we had an opportunity to do that earlier this year. However, that did not happen. They were in the chamber. They were not able to do so.
But I want to remind you, Leroy, as you go, I want to remind you, this is a gentle reminder, that if you are part of the IDA, you are not going to go into the house merely as a person. You're going as a representative of party. Yes. So when you get, if you do get there, Leroy, yes. You will have to understand that the collaboration that we are going to be talking about is a collaboration not only between individuals, but a collaboration between political parties. Because it's not a set of independents who go into the House. Is that correct?
Yes, definitely.
So realistically speaking, you have to pay attention to what the party has to say, not only what you as an individual might want to say.
Certainly.
Is that correct?
Yes, certainly you are 100% correct. It is a collaboration of political parties. However, from a legislative perspective, it is formally a collaboration of assembly persons representing different political parties, and therefore assembly person is more, or assembly, and I say assembly person in contrast to assemblyman because I do have a problem referring to a woman as an assemblyman. Hence the reason I say assembly person.
But it's a legal term. It's a legal term, and they say they explain up front that assemblyman refers to both female and male.
And
so that's just legalese for you.
And of course, I reserve the right to find that chauvinistic.
Of course.
Even though it is legal.
And may I suggest assembly person if you wish?
Yes, assembly person works much better for me.
But yes, so but to come back to the point, when you're going to be discussing any matter at all, you are going to be discussing these matters not merely as an individual, but as a member of a party on whose strength you might luckily be a part of the assembly. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that is why I think the Tobagonians are very fortunate that Dr. Denise Soyapat Angus, in her wisdom, created this political party idea. Because if you look at all the demographics, all the different things that came into place that made it not work at the beginning of this year, the incorporation of the idea into the formula makes it a little bit easier to have that unity that could bring about autonomy and all the other good things that could happen. That being said, I would like to take this opportunity now to elaborate on the idea, which I would have...
No, let me come back to you. Right?
Yes, sir.
And let's go to Miss Herbert, your colleague, right?
Okay.
Miss Herbert, I think, spoke of patriotism. She spoke of the heritage. Did she talk about those? Correct me if I am wrong, Miss Herbert, but you talked about fishing.
Yes, I did talk about fishing and aligning the direction of the island to the education system.
Right. So what I want you to do for the conversation is to tell Tobago how you might get fishing to be a part of schooling in such a way as to bring as massive benefits as are possible for Tobagonians.
Okay. All right.
Focus only on fishing. Focus only on fishing. How might you get that into the system? Go ahead.
Okay. So in focusing on fishing, we do have to focus on the parenting as regards fishing, parenting, how we direct our children, especially in this part of the island, of the value of it, right? How we see it as a people. Assemblyman would have mentioned, assembly person, sorry.
No, you can say woman if he doesn't mind.
Would have mentioned that education begins even before preschool, which is at home, right? And that, the thing is that it's difficult to teach what you don't know, right? And if our parents don't know this, they themselves would have been taught in a different way. They wouldn't be able to teach their children.
Remember that what you are focused on. Let me remind you.
Yes.
How do you get that into the education system?
Right. In doing that, then we need to focus on the particular curriculums tailored to children, right? Particular tailored to children to bring that change about. We know that children change their parents' mind, right? That children change their parents' mind in ways that we that we can't even imagine, right? So I think that in focusing specific curriculum to children from preschool, the sensitivity of the environment. I remember when I was a child and reading and learning, I would have gotten literature from Environment Tobago, which informed me about coral bleaching and all that kind of thing, which I had no clue about because it was not part of the education system, right? This is stuff that I had to learn outside of it. So what I'm saying, in order for this to happen, we have to start by putting the educational things in the school, part of the curriculum, in order for it to happen.
Oh, Stacey,
Right?
very interesting, but and I am sure we need far more time than we do for you to get into the details.
Yes.
But I want you to consider that the system that we have been using across the island,
yes,
is a system in which we focus on academics.
yes,
We have what you might call an academic track of education.
yes,
And it's a track that omits a focus, for example, on fishing. Do you think with that kind of track that we have, a track where we do language, mathematics, give me some more, Stacey. Come up the road to the secondary level.
Science, principles of business. Yes.
Spanish, French,
yes, French,
and
yes.
so on. That's what we mean by the academic track, right?
Yes, yes.
And I think it was Zia who said that there was a high failure rate on
Yes.
that track.
Yes, yes.
And lots of young men and women who could have done better if there were other kinds of focus.
Yes.
Cannot do that. And so we have a problem there, right? So
yes.
So bear that in mind, that the track is academic.
Yes.
Mostly.
Yes.
And develop the point now, and develop the point.
Yes. And
Tobago wants to hear you, Stacey.
And that would have come from, we could credit the Dr. Eric Williams for the track that we are on when it comes to that, because Dr. Eric Williams would have created a 15-year plan, which would have focused on the putting together of this educational system, where he would have given the opportunity for everyone to have secondary education and that kind of thing. And because the plan, basically, I don't want to say it was elitist, but it was elitist, right? So it didn't necessarily focus on those things, right? So what we need to do is actually create an educational plan that actually tailors to this, right? It has to start from there. Policy has to start from there, right? Mm-hmm. So if we do not create the policy that dictates this, then this will not happen, right?
Thank you, thank you. We will come back.
So that's the direction I would like to see. I'd like to see we take this assembly in so that we can impact the island in the way that it needs to go.
Let me just take a moment, Stacey, to remind our viewers or listeners that this is an event organized by Tobago CivilNet. And CivilNet is a non-partisan organization in Tobago that is concerned about all matters Tobagonian. We have been talking about the pandemic in previous panels, and now we are talking about education, whether more particularly Tobago or the teachers, the system has been miseducating the Tobagonian, right? Just reminding our listeners and our viewers that this is the focus of tonight's panel. And let me go to Ms. Zia Hackett. Ms. Zia, do you agree in part or in whole with what Stacey has been trying to articulate here for Tobago?
Yes, I do. And this takes me back to a concept I learned while I was doing my minor in education at the University of the West Indies called relevance. And there are two types of educational relevance. There is personal relevance, and that is where there's an intrinsic motivation to learn based on what you deem important in your life, the personal aspect, that intra aspect. And then there is a life relevance. And this is where on the external, where communities and a society can place focus and priority on the areas they want their society to move forward or progress in. And because we're an island looking to find that identity, I believe that the life relevance for this island should be based on the sectors we deem important for that economic stability of this island. And so areas such as agriculture, tourism, fishing, the business sectors, technology, the arts, culture, they definitely need to be incorporated in that education system. And I believe that, you know, we had some really, really good plans as a country when we had the trade school and those tech VOC institutions being a part of the formal education system. And now more than ever, you're seeing a kind of fading away of these and more focus on strictly academia. And so for instance, right now, you would have students, it's universal education when it comes to secondary school education. What we had in the past was this common entrance examination, and because we had limited institutions, we literally had to separate, you know, those who would be moving on into the formal education system secondary wise, and those who could not make the cut, as we call it, had to be filtered into that system. And I don't even think it should have been that way.
Okay.
Because persons may be getting into the secondary school system just because they believe it's the only avenue to make a good living, as opposed to focusing on something they actually really want to get into, and parents understanding the value of all occupations and what each occupation contributes to society as a whole. So for instance, my daughter, she is in fourth form of Bishop's High School, but she already wants to get into film and the arts and theater and stuff like that. Before, while having conversations, she was only focused on the sciences because that is what she had around her. Very elitist, very, you know, competitive. You get to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, you know, but now because of all the fact that the world is now becoming a global village, and you're seeing people like the YouTubers, and you're seeing social media, and we call them social media influencers, making more money without even a degree, we're growing and gaining that understanding that education and its contribution and connection to becoming a successful citizen, or a citizen who is able to contribute positively to society and have that financial freedom does not necessarily come from just a five subject certificate or 4 subjects A levels or going up to.
Ms. Hackett, you have so much to say that I am guilty of always interrupting, but it's for the good. I'm going to ask your colleague, Abby Taylor, Ms. Taylor,
Yes,
assuming that she agrees with the ideas that you have just expressed, to tell us how might these things come to reality, to fruition. Ms. Taylor, I'm asking your colleague on that assumption. If she finds my assumption wrong, she must say so and say that her ideas are a bit different from Ms. Hackett's ideas. So let's hear. I'm not trying to put a spoke in the wheels of the camp, not at all. Miss Taylor?
Taylor? Dr. James, I think to kind of expound on what Zorisha was saying, sorry, Assemblyman.
He's also Zorisha.
Let me give her her title, please.
Okay.
I think we have to introduce a proper system of evaluation. There is no way we can continue on with the educational system that we have here, focusing purely on academics. We would have a society that would not be able to sustain itself, essentially, in my point of view. You would have an academic or a scholarly set of people. You would have an island full of just scholars alone, and not one of an even mix of skills and trade and academics. So I believe that evaluation plays an important role, and that is one of the points that we have.
But before you can get to evaluation, you have to have something in the curriculum, right, to evaluate.
Correct. Evaluate the curriculum that we have now because it ain't working.
Right.
So first things no, I get upset because I remember when my daughter started primary school, that was some 17 years ago. I mean, we would have learned that children learn differently. You have different styles of learning. And because she was a more auditory learner, by the time she entered primary school, the teacher told me that she was slow. And can you imagine how much students would have passed through her class? And she would have attached that label to them, and they would have continued on being titled or labeled as a slow learner, just because they didn't reach this very unrealistic ideal of what education should be. So
Yeah,
we
you're
need,
talking about the girl who was interested in film. Is that it? Is it you who said that?
no, that was Zarisha's daughter.
Okay. What
We
was your
both have,
what is your daughter interested in?
yes, we both have teenagers, right?
No, but what is your daughter interested in?
My daughter she likes technical drawing. She wants to be an architect. Unfortunately, I don't think that she is anyway cultural in any sense of the word. But nevertheless, this could be her skill set could be integrated into different subsects of what we are trying to achieve as the Tobago ideal, right? We need to start moving away from the traditional, which I think is Anglo-Saxon way of thinking, because we still adopt and we still teach that English way of education and style, and we have to sit proper and we have to wear a jacket and tie.
You do know that in England they have a tech work track, not only an academic track. There are different kinds of schools in England. You do know that. Right?
Why haven't that been adopted in the Caribbean, though?
But it's a good question to ask, eh?
Yeah.
But now that you are a new kid on the block, you're a new kid on the block, politically speaking, you have to go into the house if the people send you there with clearer ideas with respect to how you might effect change in a country where policy is made nationally, centrally, and where you are accepting a policy that comes from the center of the island. It's not what we are talking about to a certain extent.
I think that our policymakers should be more assimilative. We are moving in to a new generation, a new era where things aren't as static as we would have thought it to be. Education isn't static, culture isn't static. Everything is as fluid as the sun rises and it sets. Everything changes, and policy should take on that kind of assimilative role. Persons are moving away. We see now, if we do the studies, we will see that persons are moving away from the traditionally academic type education system and more moving into the arts and stuff. And if that is the case, our policies, our educational policies should reflect the wave in which our change is happening.
Thank you. For listening to all four of you, there is a similarity of perspective on education. That is to say, PDP and IDA and the individuals who represent them seem to be saying the same thing. You might not articulate each of you in the same way, but you seem to be going in the same general direction. And so I must ask Stacey now to come back in and to ask her to deepen any idea, including the fishing idea again. I don't think she had finished, but to deepen the idea, more specifically, how can we get it into the system, into education, into formal education in the country? Stacey?
Okay, so in order to get it into formal education, as I would have said before, we have to effect the change in policy, right? And also in the training of our teachers and that kind of thing, so that just as we would have, the other panelists would have mentioned, how we are taught, how children are taught in school is not necessarily, it doesn't cater for learning, basically, right? Because we basically taught by rote, right? I'm very happy to see that in Tobago, at least, there's an inclusion of drama and theater arts in some schools. That is actually what I did at university, right? And we would have introduced drama teachers in schools, which would have helped, I think, in, which could help even further by allowing more latitude, giving more latitude when it comes to teaching in that kind of direction, because drama changes things in ways that you cannot even imagine. Yeah, so I would like to see that happen in order for it to change in the way that we would want it to change. And in that way, we use our ways of doing things, our traditions, our you know, yes, you understand what I mean?
Yeah, the people are listening to you, so you do the best you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sometimes I
so
get
we have our own realities that we must value. I'm hearing that.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
must value those realities in a formal way. We must
Yes.
include it within the curriculum
Of
for it to
course.
get the kind of value. And you are associating some of those things with other things that other people have talked about.
Yes.
Would
yes.
you go, Stacey, for an integrated model? That is to say, you keep the academic model and you integrate the non-academic, these are
Yes.
loose terms, of course,
Yes.
into the system? Is
Of
that
course.
it?
Yes,
Or
I
do
would
you go for
definitely.
the separate track, or do you go for an integrated track?
It should be integrated, right? For instance, I think that from the first to third form in secondary schools could be, you know, you kind of give the children the opportunity to feel out the thing and decide what they want to do. And from then, instead of having children go through 5 years of doing the academic studies like what we normally do, if they get to third form and they realize, listen, I want to focus in another direction. Don't force them to go through 5 years of academia when it's not necessary. Then when they finish the 5 years, then they have to go into technical stuff.
You're aware, Stacey, are you not? You're aware that we have tried the integrated model, right? Are you aware?
To some extent, maybe, but I don't think in its fullness. It could be worked on.
Okay.
It could be.
Let me go to your colleague, Mr. George, who wanted to deepen something there for me, and I cut him short with apologies. So let me go back to him and ask him if he's going to be deepening those ideas now. Mr. George, would you like to deepen? Yeah.
I heard you speak multiple times about fishing, and I remember there was one particular incident with the capital of Paradise where, when it was earlier called the Sea Power, Mr. Abington, who had told the Castara fishermen and all of Tobago that if you come into his particular department, you'll be able to come with your ideas, leave with a business, etc. And when the Castara fishermen said, okay, well, we want this mothership and we're going to bring in this amount of fish, etc., etc., he gave them the opportunity to do so. He purchased a boat with that kind of spending. It was $6 million. And he boasted that they were going to educate them. I spoke to one of those fishermen, and to my understanding, they went to Canada. They did receive the education necessary, and they did come back and they did produce quite a bit of fish. It was in the tens of thousands of pounds every single time they went out. And because there's a lack of respect for certain occupations, as my colleague, Miss Stacey Hubert, would have mentioned multiple times, because there's a lack of respect for certain occupations, that boat was taken away from them. It was sent into another division. It was put under Flipcut, which is another organization, etc., etc. And so what you have now, you have those grown individuals, and it's important when we're talking about the education, and I love that CivilNet spoke about miseducating Tobagonians and not in contrast to miseducating Tobago's children, because you have adult education out there. And as a result of that, you took away from them not only an opportunity to make a good income, but an opportunity to use the skills that they developed whilst they were out there studying. And that's a very big problem, because whilst a lot of us look at occupation as something whereby you gain income or you're able to make a salary, occupation is also something that keeps your mind stable. It keeps you from going into depression. When you go and you educate yourself, you get all this knowledge to do all these things, and yet still you're being asked to do the most repeating, simplistic of tasks. It is going to take a toll on your brain. And so that is why we need to respect from the very early stages. I like how Ms. Abby Taylor talked about incorporating the arts into even the very beginnings of your schooling. Because from the very early stages, we need to look at our children, see their skills, and we need to praise them. We need to praise them when you see that you have a fisherman a 5-year-old fisherman catching those fishes, getting all the understandings necessary. Praise them. Oh my God, you're going to fix food security on this island. This island needs you so much. And when we could start doing that, when the teachers have an attitude of doing that, when the parents have an attitude of doing that, because a lot of students are home right now and they need that encouragement from their parents, when our administrators, when our assembly persons, our counselors, etc., secretaries, etc., when we could all come together as one Tobago and do that and encourage our kids, not only do we have mentally healthier children, but we have a stronger economy and an exponentially growing economy as a result.
Wow, I hear you, Mr. George, and I want to take the moment now to remind our audience or viewers that this is an event, this panel discussion that we're having here is an event organized and put on by the Tobago Civil Net. The Tobago Civil Net is a non-partisan organization interested in the improvement and development of all Tobago and all Tobagonian realities. And the organization asked all the political parties to be represented, to send a representative to this panel. And the representatives we have in front of us here now are the ones that accepted. So I need to remind our audience of the state of affairs. Do you think I should go to Miss Taylor now, Mr. George? Can I leave you and go to Miss Taylor, Abby Taylor?
Certainly you can.
Miss Taylor, I want you to give a little thought to the benefits that would accrue to Tobago if we were to go down in the integrated or the two separate tracks. The integrated track that involves the academic and the technical matters. Of course, you can have academics on both tracks. We're not going to get into that detail tonight, but I want to know what are the benefits that could come to Tobago as a result of that change of focus. Could you tell us some of the changes?
I think it augurs well for our community, for our landscape, if we adopt a integrative type model rather than a one-track model. I think it will bolster our sense of pride as we would have. Let's go back to the initial conversation we had, our Tobagonian pride. I think if persons are given the opportunity to really focus on or build their craft, Tobago is set to benefit so much more. I mean, our private sector, for one, would be better developed if we encourage persons more into the trade. I don't want to say that currently we are suffering from a brain drain because a lot of academics are leaving the island. I want to believe that if we are suggesting a two-track system and the integrativeness starts at primary school level, where you have persons learning trade, craft, arts, drawing, the things that we would have adopted probably later on in our educational system, we would have a better private sector. For me personally, I think that that's the way to go.
Okay. Are you thinking also of the private sector that you're talking about? Developing products both for domestic consumption and for export?
I am.
Yeah?
Dr. James, let's be real. As we walk around during this canvassing period, as this campaign time, you see so many skilled Tobagonians. And the fact that they are resting on their God-given talents irks me as an individual, because I personally cannot do anything with my hands. And to see a craftsman, somebody who could make a leather slippers, or they could do hair, or they could do makeup, and they are being told, or they are being sold this dream of a THA job or a morning walk. I hate the term, and not being pushed into developing our private sector, or even being pushed into developing self. I think we're going down a wrong road, and we have been going down the wrongest of roads in the last 20 years, because so much people are doing what they don't love. I mean, I think everybody knows that if you do something that you love, you never work a day in your life, and you would get the best produce. There are amazing talents on this island. You go around to every village, and I'm sure you can find somebody who's a confectioner. Do they see themselves as a confectioner? No, because they're being told, oh, that's just something I could do, or you could do it in your pastime or something like that. But they don't understand the financial benefits or the economic benefits that they can gain if they just expound or materialize on whatever it is they have. I mean, in Black Rock, for example, there is a young lady and her mommy who sells sweets on the side of the road every Friday. And I would have come across an Instagram post a couple of weeks ago where there is this big expo for Tobago sweets. And I was like rushing to call these people and say, hey, I know this person, they could export our sweets up the island, because the expo was geared towards developing their business and developing their product and making it internationally marketable. And what they told me was that they didn't have a large enough cadre of people from Tobago to do this, and they would have had to choose Trinidadians. Sorry, they would have had to choose Trinidadians to do the expo. No, I'm biased. I know the sweets that come from Tobago are the best, and I know they are world standard. But people need to get to that point. We need to have that sense of pride in what we produce, that this is worthy of an international market. And I think
we are getting some disturbance in the background, so I'm asking Xavier to take care of that matter for me. Go ahead.
If we are moving along this trajectory of identifying ourselves as Tobago, we have to take the crafts and what we produce very seriously, because there is a market for it. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. There is a market for Tobago and the Tobagonian internationally.
Of course, not that you are not saying this, but it's more than craft, right?
It is more than craft. It is more than craft.
Right. I think you're praising somebody who talked about introducing the arts into the system. Drama and the arts. Who was the person who was making that point? The creative arts.
That was me, actually.
Right. Now, let me go back to Assemblywoman Hackett. It seems to me when I listen to you, there's a kind of, I don't know, a kind of a tacit frustration as to how to bring these things to reality. Miss Hackett, is she there?
I'm right here. I'm right here.
If the people of Bethesda, I think you said, send you into the house, do you have confidence that you can effect the kind of educational change that is necessary in order for these things to happen? Or are you going to have to subsist under the the educational direction of the country as it now is constituted?
Okay, so
I want to know how it can get into policy,
right,
or law.
So
Yes.
Okay. So one of the mantras of this political organization that I'm representing has come from that place where we are seeing that the educational pursuits of this island is not going in the direction we want them to go. All right, so we've already established that we can't continue along the current trajectory we have been going under for the last what, 41 years of the Tobago House of Assembly. So we already know that we have to revisit that. We have to press a reset button as it relates to that and other aspects of Act 40 of 96 that we have not been taking full responsibility for. But what I've done in the last 10 months as Assemblyman is literally embark upon some pilot projects so I can get real life data on what is needed for us to take this to that next level policy-wise. And I would have embarked on 2 types of programs. One could not go all the way through because of the pandemic, and that was a life coaching program where we got tutors, we got persons in the community to come on board and volunteer their services based on the arts, based on craft, based on skills training. So you have those persons who would not have been successful on the academic path to actually have another path in which they can become successful
but what I'm
contributors.
asking you to do, Ms. Hackett, is to go to the point of realization, implementation of policy, of lawmaking, to make these ideas a reality. How do you feel in the face of the existing circumstances and a kind of a weakened potential for new people and new ideas to hold sway, to dislodge the existing ways that have not served us particularly well?
And you have said it right there, Dr. James. The dislodging, I believe, cannot come from who is currently at the helm. I believe that they no longer have the political will and vision or even the creativity to take it to that level. And I believe that can only come from these fresh ideas and new ideologies and theoretical pursuits of brand new organizations such as ours, where we have sat on the outside looking at all these directions coming out of Port of Spain, literally being shoved down the throat of the Tobagonians, and we just have to follow suit. And so, yes, I believe that that is why we even formed a political organization to begin with. The fact that we were looking on at something we were not satisfied with, and it's bigger than education. But since this is the topic tonight, I am saying that as Tobagonians, we've looked on at a kind of carbon copy system from the national perspective, and those who are at the helm of power have not been putting anything forward that is going to be different, very tailor-cut to our needs here as an island. And this is where the new political blood and energy and passion comes in from young Tobagonians, and I'm saying young in a generic, in a generic way, but young, fresh, creative ideas and that passion to really make a difference and that political will to stand up and say, listen, this has not been going in the direction we wanted to go as an island, and we have to stand up and say we need to bring something different to the table. And that is what my political organization.
I know the campaign has started, but has anybody been prosecuting such views on your platform?
Yes, we have. We've been prosecuting those views. Every Wednesday night on our workshop, we have a workshop program where we take apart every aspect of that Act 40 of 1996 as it relates to the areas of responsibility. We deal with health, we deal with education, agriculture, and so on. And just
have you been going around the districts and talking on the platform on these matters?
No, we haven't been going around the districts because of the COVID restrictions. We're in one specific spot and we televise and share and stream from that one specific spot. So unfortunately,
so you will not be doing district campaigning?
I am not sure at this time what we're going to do as it relates to district campaigning in the wake of the restrictions of the pandemic. We're hearing that there should be some lifting of the curfew and the state of emergency soon. And we're hoping that, if that happens, that we responsibly take the campaign to the streets. But it does not stop the prospective candidates from going out there and sharing the vision of the political organization as it relates to what they themselves would have suggested we take the educational pursuits and every other pursuit of the Tobagonian. And that is what has been happening in small pockets where the prospective candidates have been meeting with persons have been engaging in town hall meetings and using the technology to really get that vision out there. And so even without, that large scale mass political meeting where you get the energy and the vibe, we're in different times where the pandemic has taken, front and center stage. And so we have to be very careful and find new and innovative ways to get our messaging out there, which in itself helps us to to promote policy, because that's just the way the world is going anyway. The fact that we have to keep up and update every aspect of what we want to see this Tobago look like. And so we have been using the technology and pushing forward our plans and visions, just not taking the campaign to the streets yet, because we also have to be responsible citizens. But we have been advocating and articulating all of views every Wednesday night, and starting from this Sunday night, this and Sunday nights as well, as it relates to all views where we believe we need to push policy, vision, and planning, and demonstrate to the Tobagonians that this political organization is ready for governance.
Thank you. And now
You're
I
welcome.
go back to Mr. George. Leroy?
Yes, sir.
Do you want to, yes?
Yeah,
Go down
building
in a
on,
different direction?
on what Assemblywoman Hackett has been speaking about, one thing I would like to state is that I spoke to a resident here in Lowlands, Lambo-Camby area, and what he said that when there's bells and whistles, there's seldom listening taking place. And as a result, I feel very proud of the idea, because we have found ways to spread our message in a way without the bells and whistles, and to utilize the fact that we're not able to go out there and do those mass meetings, etc. To actually every Thursday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m. we have Idea Live. You just have to type in Idea Live. And what the first thing you're going to notice is that our mandate, we give it out in video format. So whatever we're speaking about on that given day, you would see it in video format. You would see PowerPoint presentations with the nice music, the nice soothing music, etc. And so you know what we're about, etc.
Have you done any of those videos on education, on the need for educational change?
We have done about 4 of them. Education is one that we're going to be dealing with very soon. What we did do so far is agriculture, and we did touch education where agriculture is concerned. We did fisheries also, and we did a couple other subjects. So literally every single thing that is dealt with by the Tobago House of Assembly, 2 nights a week, we're going to be able to cover everything. And we're going to be able to cover everything in a very sober way. And we're very, very grateful that there is an opportunity to actually have a Tobago House of Assembly campaign with sobriety in messaging is central.
Good. So let me, you don't mind me going to your colleague Stacy now, do you?
I do not mind, and I do appreciate that you always ask if you can move on.
But it's a good conversation we are having, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a good conversation we are having. Not so, Stacy?
Definitely so.
I want you, when you leave the program, to feel a sense that you published ideas that you wanted to publish. And if you corrected, if you made a false note earlier, you had an opportunity to either correct it, clarify, as the case might be, right? I'm going back to fishing. How, if you get into power, your party, the IDA, how might you go about ensuring that fishing becomes part of educational policy, meaning part of the subject matter of teaching and learning? How do you plan to do that if you have developed the ideas yet?
Repeat that for me, please.
Well,
You cut out for a moment.
If the people put you in power, and let's suppose you become Secretary for Education, how might you go about prosecuting the idea that Tobago must be in charge of its own curriculum in accordance with its own rights, right?
Yeah.
You need to be given the power to walk that road with all the risks that are involved, but you want that power to get it into the school system and moving on from there. I mean, that fishing being only an example of this.
Yes.
Tell me, talk as freely as you can.
Okay. All right. In getting that in putting that in place with all the policies and all of that in place, right? There's another thing that goes hand in hand with all that we are talking about, and that is critical thinking. right? We need to focus on that aspect also in going forward, right? People need to understand what they're doing.
Critical thinking is a methodology, of course.
Yes, it is.
How you go about, affecting things, affecting understanding. But I want you to get to the point where policy is affected. Here you are, Assemblyman Stacey Herbert in the House of Assembly chamber, and you're saying, okay, we are here now to talk about policy in education on a particular matter. Would you like to have the power to make the change that we are talking about here tonight? Or are we only going to be talking in a way that continues to frustrate us? We want to see change happen, but we don't have the power to make the change happen.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes. So as I would have said before, it starts in the policy, right? And we do need to put the policy in place. And just as we would have spoken before, we need to come with Assemblyman Hackett and Abby Taylor and all the other parties involved in order to get that done, right? So since we are all in agreement that this needs to be done, then we can be in agreement as to how it rolls out, right?
Okay. Right.
It should be an approach that is from the people. First thing, it has to be from the people. We have to have that mandate from them. And then we as assemblymen have to put it in place. We have to figure out how we're going to do it in the first place, right? It's not something that I myself alone can do. It's a unified approach in order to get it done and get it done correctly. That is my defense.
Just a word on somebody mentioned earlier that as a result of current policy,
yes,
young Tobagonians are forced to leave the island in search of better education,
yes,
in search of better work opportunities, right?
yes.
Do you think that what we are talking about here can hold the people who otherwise would have gone, would have left the island?
Yes, it can if we have tailored it to suit that. The thing is, because we have the people who would have been educated before, a lot of them would have followed the elitist model that is in place. We have to find ways to integrate them, and we have to figure out a way to do it, right? But going forward, we have to find ways to educate in the way that we definitely need to in order to do it better as we go forward. Some things that we might not be able to totally do in the short term, but in the long term, we will definitely be able to focus on it and do it.
And I imagine you are prepared to make some solid noise in the chamber if you were to be put there.
Of course. It is absolutely necessary that we make as much noise. And sometimes that is not necessary to make noise, right? Because since as we sit in this panel here, we have a lot of people, the policies of the IDA and the policies of the PDP, according to the representatives here, seem to be going in the same direction. I don't believe that we need to make all that amount of noise, Okay. We can actually agree, we could reason together and get it done, because at the end of the day, beyond political affiliations and alignments, we are all Tobagonians, and we all feeling this thing that has been pressed down on us for the past how many years. We all affected by the pandemic. We all affected by the things that are happening around us. So many of our children or parents or sisters, brothers suffering from this thing. There are people who I grew up with that I've never seen since they left secondary school because they gone to the States or other parts of the island, of the country, and we perhaps will never see them again. My niece, she is into, she likes the earth sciences, right? And she wants to be a geologist, right? And she probably will leave here. If it is that we don't fix this thing, then she'll probably leave here and go to Japan and never come back. I am hoping that it doesn't happen. But we have to, in order for those things to not happen, we have to work together. We have to work together.
So I hear you say that we are having children in Tobago, and we are having them to export them to develop other people's places.
Oh, yes. Yes,
And
Dr.
then we can,
James, if I could
yes,
add to what Ms. Herbert just
yes,
said, is
yes.
that that's not the only issue that we are suffering from the brain drain. People going and developing other spaces, is that even if they want to make contribution
yes.
to the island, there is no space for that either. My brother is a doctor of education in special education. And he came back a couple of years ago and he wanted to make a contribution to the educational policy with special regard to special education, because that's another point of contention for me, is that they play enough emphasis is placed on the differently abled and the disabled community education wise. And he tried to meet with whoever the assemblyman was, I would not call the name, and he was denied a meeting with them. And so you don't even have a space to say, okay, I am Tobagonian, this is what I would have learned over my period of time, and this is what I would like to give back to Tobago to help develop the space that I came from. You don't even have that as an access point here. So much.
Well, somebody is asking in relation to what we are talking about, and I may have missed some other questions, but I didn't miss this one. Should job creation only be the responsibility of our governments? The public sector is not effective, and it is the private sector that should be the major employers of the day.
Oh,
I'll
yes.
take the opportunity, Ms. Taylor, to comment on that question and observation.
Can you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
Well, it says here, should job creation only be the responsibility of government? Or shouldn't the public sector, the private sector, sorry, not be involved? And shouldn't they be the major employers of the day rather than government? And how do you do that, I imagine?
That's a very good question. How do you do that when we have been cultured in a way to believe that the public sector is the only sector in which you could have a job? How can you do that when you have been cultured and taught that the private sector in Tobago, especially in Tobago, almost does not exist? How do you go about creating that mental shift for persons to move from the idea of having a government job, and that is the only sense of security that you have in the Tobago context, for economic growth and for financial sustainability, into the thought processes of there is a different sector that could be developed and maintained and sustained and established and grown by persons within this space. I think that it's unfortunate that we have suffered that kind of acculturation, let me say, because it's something that we would have adopted over time.
Yes.
But I do believe that under a new dispensation with new ideas, new philosophies of who we are, what we can produce, what we are producing is good. I mean, our private sector is set to develop. I think that Tobago, if we change our trajectory mentally, if we change the way in which we process ideas, if we change the way in which we teach our children as to how skills and trades should be developed, I think the private sector is set to take Tobago into economic sustainability.
So, Ms. Taylor, you are not one of those Tobagonians who think that Tobagonians are shiftless. They cannot take their own initiative. You don't believe that, do you?
I don't think so. I think we are we are a resilient type of people. We have overcome worse than this. I mean, COVID is hard, yes, I'm not saying no, but we have come from a history of fighters. And I think somewhere along the line, we have been so subservient to an alien, and I say alien in every sense of the word, because it is not us. This is not intrinsically us. This is not innately us. To be so submissive, to believe that we can't do better or we should only settle for what we can do or what persons have ascribed to
But
us.
would you say that you know quite a lot of Tobagonians, including businessmen, who are autonomous in the way they act, in their thinking, how they run their lives? Would you say that you know of people in Tobago who are autonomous, or are they part of the dependency syndrome?
Asking me a hard question.
Well,
to be honest,
have a go at it, and then I'll ask somebody else too.
Okay. I think we have thinkers in Tobago. I think we have doers in Tobago. I think the thinkers and the doers need to come together. I believe also that Tobago needs to have an awakening of sorts. I don't know how, but it needs to start at a policy level. We can talk about it as much as being ground or grassroots or whatever the case may be, but change can only happen and effectively happen if policy dictates such change.
Okay. Well, you seem to be relating change to the question of the degree and quality of self-determination. Am I reading you right?
Yes, you are.
Let me ask Ms. Stacey if she agrees with you there, that for the change to come, we have to change the kind of self-determination basis that we live under now.
Yes, I definitely agree. You asked Ms. Taylor about if she thinks that there are businessmen in Tobago, business persons in Tobago who operate under that kind of level. And I could tell you that I do. Because I grew up with parents, with a mother who told me, don't let people show off on you. You understand? You had to get up and get, you know? You can't sit down and wait for nothing to happen. You understand? I was 16 years old when I finished secondary school and could not work. And because of that, I had to start to do something. So I started using my hands. And because I would have started in that kind of way, I've developed a way that every single thing that I want, I would go and get it for myself. I try to find it for myself. You understand?
Let me intervene to say we only have about 3 more minutes. Yes. I want you to take the opportunity to tell your audience something that you want to repeat to them, or some new thing that you haven't said before. Okay. And that question goes for everybody I'll be calling upon in a while. The rest of the group. Yes. Go ahead. Is there anything special you want to tell them? Do you want to repeat any idea that you expressed for emphasis?
Yes, Stacey? I would like to tell the viewing public, Tobagonians, it is not enough to sit and wait for anything to be handed to you. It is in your power and it is your right, your duty to get up and speak. Get up and speak the change that you would want. If you want X to happen, then you have to get up and say, listen, I want X to happen. You cannot hire somebody to do a job in your house and the person not doing the job and you don't get rid of them. You know, This is reality. It is foolishness. Okay. It is a waste of money. It is a waste of time. If you're paying somebody to do something and they're not doing it.
I read your underlying message, Stacey. Thank you. Yes. Let me go to Assemblywoman Hackett for her statement, final statement on the same issue. Repeating an idea, or you have a new idea you want to express?
I just have a position I want to leave Tobagonians with tonight. I am of the mantra where Nelson Mandela would have said that education is one of the most powerful weapons we can use to change the world. And in this case, in the Tobago context, education on who we are as a people, education on where we've come from, education on what we bring to the table in this union called Trinidad and Tobago is necessary for us to move forward in the direction we as persons have been self-determined to move forward in the last, 120 something years since we would have been joined with Trinidad as a union. And I just want to say that, with everything we've been discussing tonight, it all boils down to the authority we have as an island to make the changes we wish to make. And that again boils down to the autonomy issue that we've been pursuing for the longest while. It all boils down to autonomy, and this needs to come as a result of fresh ideas, newness in energy, which can only come from a change in governance on this island.
And Leroy, what say you?
I would like to address the question that the commenter posed. And what I would say is that there is a social contract that has existed and always has existed and always will exist between governments and the people that these governments serve, which is our society. And that is to reach all the shared needs of that society. And I would suggest that a strong private sector is a shared need in our society, because in the absence of a strong private sector, you have strong government dependency, make work programs, and all of those evils that come with that. And I would like to point out that and this time, throughout my lifetime, I am seeing that the private sector is being served worse than ever before. In that, you look at, even for one example, these safe zone systems, which cut off a lot of lower and middle income business persons, well, middle income, especially business persons, some 60% of the population of Tobago. Those businesses are going to crash because you have a situation where the present government administration would have implemented policy without the two things that are absolutely needed.
Say those two things, and I have to go finally to somebody else, but go ahead. Say those two things.
The two things are consultation and transparency. Before you make any plan,
don't develop them.
with the people.
So we don't have the time.
That's it. I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. George. And the final word is Abby Taylor's.
Thank you, Dr. James. I appreciated this topic. Are we miseducating the Tobagonian? Have we? Yes, we have. I mean, history shows that we have been miseducated. However, it's all lost. No, it's not. I think this panel alone shows that Tobago is poised for greatness. We have a cadre of persons on this island that are great thinkers, great innovators, and persons ready to put up the fight to moving Tobago forward. Dr. James, I'd like to thank you for having me. This was one of the most educational panels I've been on, because it causes us to internalize who we are as a people. I hope that we would have more discussions like this moving forward, even after the election, because this is a conversation that does not end on December the 6th.
Thank you very much, Ms. Taylor, and thank you very much, everybody. It's great to have participated in this conversation. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Same to you. Good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay.